Welcome to the first long-form video of this channel, and I want to start by talking about my experience with this book. A little bit of introduction. My name is Lars and I suck at music. I do love music, I love listening to music, I would love to play music, and I tried without any teacher, by myself, and I even got in a journey with literary, as you probably can see here. I built a lot of instruments, and now I want to get back to try to learn music properly. And I thought to start with the violin. With this one, to be precise. This is a violin that I built myself. I even put fret on this just to help myself during the process, because honestly, who cares? And the reason why I'm going with the violin is because I am a sucker for fiddle and Irish music and folk music in general. And so I thought to myself, I want to try to learn this more, and I want to show you that it's doable, and I want to take you alongside with me in this journey. And I found this on Amazon, and seems like an interesting idea for a video. And this book is pretty simple. You have 14 days, each day you have 6 exercises, apart from day 7 and day 14 where there is actually a song to learn. And you should practice each day, for each chapter, an hour and a half. But that seems unreasonable, and I know that I could practice half an hour a day to be consistent, and it's a doable plan. So instead of doing this challenge in 14 days, I decided to do it in 42 days. And I started at the 2nd of January, and let me tell you, it was a pretty good start. I practiced that morning, I recorded everything, and then I went to work, and then I came back, and good news, my parents got COVID. And some days later I also got COVID. Also, during the entirety of this challenge, I started to sleep 4 to 5 hours each day, for no apparent reason. But in any case, I start practice and I feel motivated to do it. And I practiced for 10 days straight, apart one day when I was really a zombie, because the fever was starting to rise and I couldn't get up from the bed. I also couldn't really sleep, but I practiced and it went pretty well. The motivation already started to kind of lowered by the 10 days, the Friday of the week after I started. And from there I decided I should practice 5 days each week, which, if you never tried, do it, because I think it's the best way of practice. You treat this like it's muscle training. You practice for 4 to 6 days each week, and you give some time to rest. In this case, it wasn't that much for me to rest for the muscle, but it's more because I could distance myself from the practice for a little bit, recharge, do something else. And so I begin on Monday with new willpower to continue. After this, I continued to practice, and it was good. The fact that I had a little bit of muscle memory from other instruments really helped, at least with my left hand. My right hand, the one that handled the bow, sucked. And the sound, it's not great, but at least I could complete the exercise with a decent sound, for a beginner at least. And practice went well, because I should have completed each chapter in 3 days, and instead it took me around 2 for most of them. And I was feeling pretty confident that I was doing great, and there was nothing to stop me to complete this challenge in the 42 days. Or so I thought. Chapter 12. Let me tell you, this is fun. I finished chapter 11 at the 24 days? I don't know. I start to lose track of what days I was at this point. I was just going, but editing, I think that I was in around the 24 days. So with 12 hours of practice, and I was feeling confident. I actually thought that because I had time, I should have spent a little more time with this melody, Angelina Baker. But then I saw chapter 12 and what the chapter was about. Double stop. And I start to freak out. Normally on the violin you play like, and in a lot of instruments you play one note at a time. Right? But double stop means that you are playing two notes at a time in, of course, two different strings. And while on guitar or bass it's really simple because it just means that instead of using one finger you're using two, or you're just strumming two strings at the same time. On the violin it means that you need to angle this fucking bastard to the right amount, and you need a proper bow technique to do it. Now, I spent 5 days on this. I spent 3 days just on the first exercise and I was starting to feel seriously angry, so I said to myself, let's try another exercise. I failed, and I even tried the melody at this point, where for whatever reason they introduced triplets without a warning. I don't know, this chapter seems like an afterthought. But I didn't want to end this in a negative note. I could have said fuck it, fuck the video, fuck everything else. I'm not gonna show this, it's stupid, I'm not doing it. No. I need to continue. So I simply decided to avoid chapter 12. I just need to finish the other two and I'm done. And I can tell that this thing is done. I will abandon chapter 12, but with the promise that one day, I will get back to the little bastard and I will own double stop. I will. Like kind of a new Rocky, but for music, less big and famous. I decided to press on. Chapter 13 was actually pretty easy. Again, the difficult part just dropped a lot, and I completed that in 2.5 days, so I could continue to practice on chapter 14. And chapter 14 is a long piece song, and this is actually a pretty difficult song, but reachable. Now this song is put in here to be like the finished song with where there is everything that you practice on this book, apart double stop. Thank God. It's in 3/4, faster parts, you use 8 note, there are also triplets, dot note, and you are using all the 4 string. So I need a plan to approach this thing. Now step 1 is divide. I divide the piece into 3 parts. The first part is really slow, long notes. You have the final part that is fast, but with a repetitive rhythm, and you play that almost entirely on the E string. Then you have a middle part which is fast, but it works like a bridge between the beginning and the final part. So I identify these 3 parts, and then is step 2, conquer. I took the first part and I practiced this as a very slow BPM. I practiced the first part at 80 BPM until I could do the thing not perfectly, but with confidence. Just a couple of mistakes here and there. Then it's step 2, conquer again. This time I practice in isolation just the second part, and I practice it until I could do it at 80 BPM with confidence again. Then there is step 4, connecting the dots. I take the last 2 bar of the first part and the first 2 bar of the second part, and I practice that 4 bar over and over and over at 80 BPM to just get used to the change. And then after that, I just start to practice always at 80 BPM the part 1 and part 2 together. Then it's step 4, which is just the 3 and 4 again, but with the third piece. So I practiced the entirety of the third piece, then I took the connection between the second part and the third part, practice that, put everything together, and for the third day I was be able to actually practice the entire thing at 80 BPM. So after 3 days of practice, I was ready for step 6, which I will call repeat, then repeat faster. There is nothing more boring but necessary to do at this point. I just practice the entire song over and over and over again. At some point I just put something on the background because my brain works differently. I need background to work. I cannot work with silence, and I just practice the song. I start at 80 BPM with the entire song, and then I raise the BPM 5 BPM at a time until 110 BPM. I will say it was quite a fast process, but the last step from 110 BPM to 120 was a nightmare. Was the longest part because it was just this far from my limits. But at that point I didn't know how much time I had left to complete the challenge, and I was feeling a little bit overwhelmed by the entire thing. You know, when you are just this close to the end line and you want to arrive at, but the last step is just so long, boring and difficult. At some point I decide, fuck it, I will put the metronome in my ears, I have the camera rolling, and I start to try to record this piece at 120 BPM without any mistake. And this is the result. So I complete the challenge in 41 days. Ooh! And look, I know that the sound is not perfect, the recording is not perfect. But you know what? Who cares? Who cares? Because I practice for basically 2 months regularly, and I improved myself. That's the most important part. And if you compare what I was at day 1 and at day 14, there is a difference. I pick up a ton of bad habits. I know I need to work on that, but at least I was be able to complete the challenge that I set to myself. And with this, I finish my first step into learning this amazing instrument. And it's just the first step, because I will continue this. I'm not stopping here to practice with the violin, and I will see you in the next video, where I probably have to work on my boy technique, because boy, that doesn't sound good. And I will see you there. I really hope that I inspire you to play more music, to practice a little bit more, and I will see you in the next video.